Revenge with Karen.
You know the sound of a person breaking? It's not a scream. In my experience, real devastation is quiet. It sounds like a jagged intake of breath over a static-filled line on a Tuesday afternoon. That was my sister, Rachel, 3 weeks ago. They didn't even let me say goodbye to the team, Mon, she choked out. 12 years. I missed Mom's 60th for the Q3 launch. I missed my own anniversary for the merger logistics. They escorted me out like I was stealing staplers. I was sitting in my home office on the Upper East Side, looking out at the skyline that I own a microscopic but significant fraction of. I didn't say anything at first. I just took a sip of my black coffee and felt that familiar, cold switch flip in the back of my brain. It's the same switch I flipped when I shorted the housing market in '08 and when I bought into Ethereum when everyone else called it magic internet money. It's the predator switch. Who did it, Ratch? I asked. My voice was calm. It always is. Leon Vance. The new VP of Operations, she cried. He said my role was redundant. Redundant, Monica? I built that department. I told her to breathe. Told her to meet me at the Starbucks across from her office building in Midtown. I hung up, and before I even put my coat on, I pulled up the public filings for Aura Link Strategies. Now, before I tell you how I dismantled a man's life without raising my voice, do me a quick favor, hit subscribe, and maybe drop a like. It keeps the algorithm happy and helps me share more stories about how the corporate sausage really gets made. Trust me, want to be around for the fallout. I met Rachel 20 minutes later. She looked like a ghost. Her eyes were red, her mascara running in jagged lines down her cheeks. She was holding a pathetic, half-crushed cardboard box containing a succulent, a framed photo of her dog, and a world's okayest employee mug I'd given her as a joke 5 years ago. They wouldn't even let me back up my contacts. She wiped her nose. Leon stood there checking his watch while security watched me pack. Let's go back, I said. What? No, Mon, I can't. You forgot your charger, I lied. And I want to see this, Leon. I walked her back into the lobby of Aura Link. It was one of those aggressively modern spaces. Too much brushed steel, not enough humanity. The air conditioning was set to morgue. We walked up to the reception desk. I was dressed down, jeans, cashmere sweater that costs more than a Honda Civic, but looks like something from the Gap, and loafers. To the untrained eye, I was nobody, just a supportive sister. That's when he walked out. Leon Vance. He was a caricature of corporate mediocrity. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny, a tie that was too wide, and he walked with that strut that screams, I cheat on my taxes and my wife. He was laughing loudly at something he said to a terrified-looking intern. Excuse me, Rachel said, her voice trembling. Mr. Vance, I think I left my... Leon didn't even stop walking. He just waved a hand in her direction without looking at her like he was shooing away a fly. HR handles lost and found, Rachel. You don't work here anymore. Clear the lobby, you're cluttering the aesthetic. He breezed past us, tapping furiously on his phone. I watched him go. I watched the way the security guard looked down, embarrassed for us. I watched my sister shrink, her shoulders hunching forward as if she were trying to disappear. He's awful, she whispered. He's sloppy, I corrected. I looked around the lobby, really looked. I saw the fraying carpet near the elevators. I noticed the reception desk had a cracked panel. I saw the mood of the employees walking in, heads down, defeated, miserable. This wasn't a thriving company. This was a rotting carcass wrapped in a shiny logo. Mon, let's just go. Rachel pulled my arm. In a minute, I said, pulling out my phone. I wasn't checking Instagram. I was checking Aura Link's stock performance over the last 6 months. It was a bloodbath. They were bleeding cash. They had missed their earnings targets for 3 consecutive quarters. The board was desperate. They had brought in guys like Leon to trim the fat, but all they were doing was cutting the muscle and leaving the cancer. I walked over to the directory on the wall, took a picture of the board of directors list. I took a picture of the top investors, and then I looked at the elevator bank where Leon had just disappeared. You know, I said to Rachel, wrapping an arm around her, I've been looking for a new project. My portfolio is a little too heavy on commodities right now. I need something hands-on. What are you talking about? She sniffled. I'm talking about restructuring, I said. I looked at the security guard, tired man in his 60s named Eddie, according to his badge. Rough day? I asked him. You have no idea, ma'am, Eddie muttered. Since the new management took over, it's a circus. They fired the cleaning crew last week. Cut everyone's hours. Is that so? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Tell me, Eddie, Who actually owns the building? Is Aura Link leasing? Nah, they own the building. But I heard rumors they're trying to sell and lease back. Cash flow problems. That was the golden ticket. A sale-leaseback meant they were desperate for liquidity. They were drowning. And when a company is drowning, the sharks don't just circle. We buy the water. Come on, Ratch, I said, leading her toward the revolving doors. Let's get a drink. I have some calls to make. You're going to do something crazy, aren't you? She asked, knowing that look in my eye. I'm not going to do anything, I said, opening the door for her. I'm a silent investor, remember. I'm going to be very, very quiet. As we walked out onto the bustling New York street, I looked back at the glass tower one last time. I could see Leon Vance on the second-floor balcony, gesturing wildly on a phone call. He looked like a king in his castle. He didn't realize he was standing in a house of cards, and I had just decided to buy the table it was sitting on. I took my phone out and dialed my broker. David, I said when he picked up, clear my schedule for the week, and get me everything you have on Aura Link Strategies. I want to know who holds their debt. I want to know who their biggest unhappy shareholder is. And David, do it quietly. The game had officially begun, and Leon Vance didn't even know he was playing. There is a misconception that hostile takeovers happen like they do in the movies, shouting matches, frantic trading floors, and dramatic music. In reality, a good takeover is boring. It's a slow suffocation. It's paperwork. It's silence. For the next 2 weeks, I didn't sleep much. I turned my home office into a war room. Rachel was staying with me, mostly because she couldn't bear to be alone in her apartment, but also because I needed her knowledge. She knew where the bodies were buried at Aura Link. Okay, I said, pointing to a whiteboard covered in names. Who is the weak link on the board? Who needs money? Rachel looked at the board, clutching a mug of tea. Jenkins, the CFO. He's going through a nasty divorce. He's been liquidating assets for months to pay his lawyers. Perfect, I said. I didn't approach Jenkins directly. That's amateur hour. If a woman in a Chanel blazer walks up to a desperate CFO, the price of the stock doubles instantly. No, I used Blue Heron Holdings, a shell company I registered in Delaware 3 years ago for exactly this kind of thing. Had my Proxy contact Jenkins' broker. We offered him a 5% premium on his shares, cash, off-market transaction. He bit so hard I could hear the snap. Just like that, I owned 8% of the company. But 8% doesn't get you a chair at the table. It just gets you a quarterly report. I needed 51%. I started buying up the float, the shares trading publicly on the market. But I had to be careful. If I bought too much at once, algorithm would flag the volume, the price would spike, and the board would sniff a raider. So I employed a strategy called iceberging. I put in thousands of small buy orders through 12 different brokerage accounts, all funneling back to 3 different trusts. I was buying Aura Link piece by piece, hour by hour. Meanwhile, I needed eyes on the inside. I couldn't go back there myself. Leon had seen my face, even if he didn't register it. I needed someone invisible. Enter Darren. Darren was my courier. He's a kid from Queens, 22 years old, sharp as a tack, trying to save money for culinary school. He's been running documents for me for years. People look right through Darren. To corporate executives, he's just furniture that moves. I need you to take a job, I told him, sliding a thick envelope across my desk. What kind of job? Darren asked, eyeing the cash. Aura Link uses a third-party messenger service for their interoffice mail. I bought that service yesterday. You're their new dedicated runner for the executive floor. Darren grinned. You want me to spy? I want you to listen. I want to know who is screaming at who. I want to know whose door is always closed. And I want you to take pictures of any whiteboard that says confidential. Darren started the next day. Every night, he'd come to my apartment with a report. The news was better than I could have hoped. Leon Vance wasn't just incompetent, he was actively burning the place down. He's firing the legacy engineers, Darren told me, eating a slice of pizza at my kitchen island. He's replacing them with guys he knows from his fraternity. They spend 3 hours a day playing online poker in the conference room. What about the product roadmap? I asked. Delayed. Indefinitely. Leon told the marketing team to keep selling the Q4 release anyway. They're selling vaporware, Monica. If the SEC finds out, the stock goes to zero. This was critical information. It meant the stock price was artificially inflated by lies. It also meant I had leverage. I decided to accelerate the buying. I instructed my brokers to get aggressive. We targeted the pension funds next. Institutional investors are usually loyal. They are also skittish. When they smell fear, they run. I had a friend in financial journalism write a speculative piece about Auralink's delayed product launch. It wasn't libel, it was true, but it was framed unfavorably. Is Auralink the next Theranos? Was the headline. The morning the article dropped, Auralink's stock dipped 12%. Panic selling began. While the market was selling, I was buying. I was vacuuming up every share that hit the floor. My stake went from 8% to 15%, then 22%. But the board was still asleep at the wheel. They were too busy doing damage control on the PR side to notice the cap table shifting. They issued a statement, Auralink remains strong. Management has full confidence in our strategic direction under the leadership of Leon Vance. I laughed when I read that press release. Full confidence. I was at 28% now. I needed the final push. That's when Darren called me from the building. His voice was low. Monica, something's happening. Leon just ordered a rush on a catering order for the boardroom tomorrow morning. High-end stuff, champagne. Why? I asked. I heard him on the phone. He's closing a deal to sell the robotics division. He's stripping the company for parts to boost the quarterly numbers so he can get his bonus. My blood ran cold. The robotics division was the only thing of real value in that company, was the division Rachel had built. If he sold that, there was nothing left to save. I looked at the calendar. The board meeting wasn't scheduled for another month. This was an emergency, unauthorized liquidation. He was looting the ship before it sank. I need to stop him, I whispered. How? Darren asked. You're not on the board yet. No, I said, looking at my monitors. I was at 34%, not enough to block a sale outright, but enough to make noise. But I can be the biggest nuisance they've ever met. I needed to get to 51% before he signed that deal. I had less than 24 hours. Darren, I said, stay close to him. Don't let him out of your sight. If he goes to the bathroom, you wait by the door. I need to know the second a buyer walks into that building. Copy that, boss. I hung up and looked at the list of remaining major shareholders. There was only one block left that was big enough to tip the scales. It belonged to the old guard, a retired founder named Elias Thorne who held 17% of the stock. He lived in a nursing home in Connecticut and hadn't voted in 10 years. If I could get Elias, I could get the company. I grabbed my keys. Rachel, get your coat. We're going to Connecticut. Connecticut in November is bleak, all bare trees and gray skies. It matched my mood perfectly. Rachel drove while I reviewed Elias Thorne's file. He was 82, a brilliant engineer who started Auralink in a garage in the 80s. He had been pushed out 10 years ago during a corporate restructuring, leaving him with a massive chunk of non-voting stock that converted to voting stock only under specific emergency conditions, or if sold to a single entity. He's going to hate us, Rachel said, gripping the steering wheel. Hates everyone associated with the new management. Good, I said, so do we. We arrived at the Oaks, a high-end assisted living facility that smelled of lavender and old money. We found Elias in the solarium, staring at a chessboard, playing against himself. He looked frail, but his eyes were sharp, hawk eyes. I don't want any more brochures, he barked without looking up. And I don't want to buy a timeshare. We're not selling anything, Mr. Thorne, I said, sitting opposite him. We're buying. He looked up. He studied me, then he looked at Rachel. His gaze softened slightly. I know you, you're the robotics girl, the one who fixed the servo latency issue in the 09 prototype. Rachel blinked, surprised. You remember that? I remember everything about my company, Elias said, bitter. Or what used to be my company before the vultures took over. What are you doing here? They fired her, I said bluntly. Leon Vance fired her so he could gut her department and sell it to a competitor to pad his bonus. Elias's hand tightened on a rook. Vance, the one with the teeth. He's selling the robotics division tomorrow morning. I dropped the bomb. Elias went still. That division is the soul of the company. The rest is just software wrapping. I know, I said. I've acquired 34% of the outstanding shares, Mr. Thorne, but I need your 17%. If you sell to me, have the controlling interest, I can stop him. Elias leaned back, studying me. And who are you? Another vulture? I'm an investor, I said carefully. I like efficiency. I like profit, but I hate waste. And what Leon is doing is wasteful. He's stripping copper wire out of a mansion. If I sell to you, Elias said, his voice raspy, what happens to the company? I fire Leon, I said. I reinstate Rachel. And we pivot back to the core engineering that made you rich. Elias looked at Rachel. Can you run it, the division? I was running it, Rachel said, her voice finding strength. Before they cut my budget to buy new ergonomic chairs for the sales team. Elias cackled. It was a dry, rusty sound. Damn sales team, always the chairs. He reached into his cardigan pocket and pulled out a flip phone. Call my lawyer. Tell him to draft the transfer. I want to see Vance's head on a platter. It took 4 hours of frantic calls, DocuSigns, wire transfers. The sun was setting when the confirmation pinged on my phone. The funds had cleared. The shares were mine. I owned 51% of Aura Link Strategies, but I didn't pop the champagne. Not yet, because possessing the power is only half the battle. Exercising it is the art form. My phone buzzed. It was Darren. Monica, we have a problem. What is it? Leon moved the meeting up. It's not tomorrow. It's in an hour. 8:00 p.m. He's doing a dinner closing with the buyers from Cyberdyne. They're in the building now. I swore. We were 2 hours away in Connecticut. Stall him, I commanded. Stall him? How? I'm the delivery guy. I don't care if you have to pull the fire alarm, Darren. Do not let those papers get signed until I get there. If he signs that sale, unwinding it will take years of litigation. Just keep him in the building. Okay. I have an idea. I'm gonna need the master keycard you gave me. Use it. I hung up. Rachel, drive, fast. We tore out of the parking lot. I spent the ride coordinating with my legal team to have an injunction ready, just in case. But legal papers take time. I needed physical presence. Meanwhile, back at the tower, Darren was about to become a legend. According to him, the buyers, 3 serious-looking Germans, were heading to the executive elevator. Leon was with them, grinning like a shark, guiding them toward the lift. Darren was waiting inside the elevator with a cart full of mail. Hold the door. Leon barked as they approached. This was the moment. The Part 4 moment, if you're following the structure of my life. Darren looked Leon dead in the eye. He saw the disrespect, the weeks of being treated like furniture, the arrogance, and he saw the blinking light of the closed door button. Darren didn't move. He didn't reach for the open button, just stood there looking at his clipboard. I said, hold the damn door, boy. Leon shouted, picking up his pace. Darren looked up, gave a confused shrug like he didn't speak English, and let the door slide shut right in Leon's face. I wasn't there, but I would have paid $1 million to see it. Leon, left standing in the lobby with 3 confused German billionaires, looking like an impotent fool. They had to wait for the next car. It bought us 3 minutes. Wasn't enough. But Darren wasn't done. He used the master keycard, the one I had provided that overrides floor restrictions, to lock out the 40th floor, the boardroom, from the elevator bank. When Leon and the Germans got into the next elevator and pressed 40, nothing happened. The button didn't light up. What the hell? Leon screamed, mashing the button. They had to go to the 39th floor and walk up the stairs. Darren had accidentally spilled a gallon of industrial floor cleaner on the stairwell landing earlier that day while delivering a package. It was chaos. It was petty. It was beautiful. Rachel and I were speeding down I-95. I was watching the GPS ETA drop. 7:45 p.m. 7:50 p.m. We were going to be close. Too close. Drop me at the front, I told Rachel. Park the car later. I'm going in. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to introduce myself. Let's rewind 20 minutes to give you the full sensory experience of Leon's meltdown. I pieced this together later from security footage and Darren's gleeful retelling. The elevator doors had slid shut, sealing Darren inside and leaving Leon in the lobby. Leon didn't just get mad, he got ugly. He turned to the German investors, representatives from a massive industrial conglomerate, and tried to laugh it off. Help is so hard to find these days, Leon chuckled, adjusting his cuffs. Incompetence is a plague. That's why we're automating, right? The Germans didn't laugh. They checked their watches. They were precision people. Delay was an insult. When the second elevator finally arrived, Leon practically shoved them inside. He slammed the button for the 40th floor. Nothing. He pressed it again. Harder. The light refused to blink. System error, Leon muttered, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Building management is upgrading the firmware. He pressed 39, it lit up. We'll take the scenic route, he announced. A quick walk up 1 flight. Good for the circulation. They exited on 39. This floor was mostly empty cubicles, the ghostly remains of the department Rachel used to run. It was dark. Leon fumbled for the light switch. Then they hit the stairwell. Darren hadn't just spilled cleaner. It created a slip-and-slide hazard of biblical proportions. And he had placed a wet floor sign directly behind the door where it couldn't be seen until you were already falling over it. Leon opened the door, gestured for the guests to precede him. He's a sycophant, remember? And the lead German investor took 1 step, slipped, and grabbed the railing with a shout. He didn't fall. But his $5,000 Italian shoe was now covered in blue industrial sludge. Chase, the investor yelled. Leon turned purple. Janitorial, where's the janitor? He screamed into the echoing stairwell. Up on the 40th floor, Darren was casually leaning against the boardroom door, texting me updates. Target is delayed. Target is angry. Target is climbing the stairs. You have 10 minutes. I was sprinting from the car before Rachel had even fully stopped at the curb. I burst into the lobby. Eddie, the security guard, stood up, startled. Ma'am. Can't, Eddie, I said, not breaking stride. I slapped a plastic card onto his desk. It wasn't an ID. It was a printout of the wire transfer confirmation from an hour ago. I own the building, or I own the company that owns the building. Call the 40th floor. Tell them the majority shareholder is incoming. Eddie looked at the paper. He looked at the zeros. He looked at me. A slow grin spread across his face. Elevator B is waiting for you, Miss Monica. I got into the elevator, the same one Leon had been locked out of. I inserted my key, the real owner's key, and pressed 40. The ride was smooth, silent. I checked my reflection in the polished steel doors. My hair was windblown. My cheeks were flushed. I looked alive. The doors opened on the 40th floor. I could hear shouting coming from the boardroom down the hall. Unacceptable conditions. We are discussing a multi-million-dollar acquisition, and we are navigating an obstacle course. That was the German. It's a minor oversight. Please sit. The champagne is chilled. Let's look at the IP portfolio. That was Leon, desperate. I walked down the hallway. The carpet swallowed the sound of my heels. I saw Darren standing by the water cooler. He gave me a tiny, imperceptible nod. He looked terrified but exhilarated. I stopped just outside the boardroom's glass doors. I could see them. Leon was spreading papers out on the mahogany table. The three Germans were standing, looking skeptical, wiping their shoes with napkins. Just sign here, Leon was saying, thrusting a pen at them. And the robotics patents are yours. The price is a steal. It was a steal. He was selling them for pennies on the dollar to close the deal fast. I pushed the doors open. They didn't slam. They swished open with a heavy, expensive pneumatic hiss. I'm afraid, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the room, that the pen won't be necessary. Leon whipped around. His face went from red to white when he saw me. He didn't recognize me as the owner. He recognized me as the woman from the lobby, the sister of the fired employee. You? He scoffed, his arrogance rushing back in to cover his fear. How did you get up here? Security. This is a restricted meeting. He turned to the Germans. Gentlemen, nor this. This is just a disgruntled relative of a former employee. She's trespassing. He marched toward me, pointing a finger at my chest. Get out, now, or I will have you arrested. I didn't blink. I didn't step back. I looked at his finger, then at his face. Touch me, Leon, I said softly, and you'll lose more than your job. My job? He laughed, a bark of a laugh. I run this company, lady. You're nobody. You're trash. He looked past me and saw Darren in the hallway. You? He screamed at Darren. You're fired. Get your ass out of here, both of you, trash. The Germans looked uncomfortable. They started packing up their briefcases. Mr. Vance, the lead investor, said, this environment is unstable. We will reschedule. No need to reschedule. Leon panicked, grabbing the German's arm. She's leaving right now. I'm not leaving, I said. I walked past Leon and placed my bag on the head of the table, his seat. Excuse me, Leon sputtered. I pulled out a single folder. Inside was the notarized transfer of stock from Elias Thorne, combined with my existing holdings. Gentlemen, I said to the Germans, switching to flawless business German, I spent 2 years in Frankfurt in my 20s. Das Treffen ist beendet. Das Angebot ist zurückgezogen. The meeting is over. The offer is withdrawn. The Germans stopped. They looked at me with new interest. Who are you? The lead investor asked. Jan stormed up to the table. She is security risk. She is. I am Monica Vance, I said. Wait, no, my last name isn't Vance, that's him. Adrenaline does funny things. I am Monica Geller. No, that's friends. I am Monica Hall, I said. And as of 6:00 p.m. this evening, I am the owner of 51% of Aura Link Strategies. The room went dead silent. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the blood rushing in Leon's ears. Leon stared at me, his mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. That's a lie, he whispered. Then louder for the room. That's a lie, she's crazy, she's a stalker. He lunged for the phone on the conference table. Get me legal, get me the chairman, get me security. I stood there, perfectly still. Go ahead, Leon, call the chairman, ask him about the transfer of the Thorne block. He froze with the handset in midair. Thorne? Elias Thorne is vegetable, he doesn't sell. He sells to people who don't call him a vegetable, I corrected. The German investors were watching this like it was a spectator sport. They had sat back down. They smelled blood, and in high finance, blood is interesting. You can't just buy a company like this, Leon stammered. There are protocols, SEC filings, all filed, I said. My lawyers are very efficient, unlike your operations department. I slid the folder across the table toward the Germans. Can verify the CUSIP numbers on the shares. It's all there. The lead German, a man named Herr Muller, put on his reading glasses. He opened the folder. He scanned the document. He looked at the signature at the bottom. He looked at the timestamp. He looked up at Leon. It appears to be legitimate, Mr. Vance. She holds the majority. Leon snatched the folder from Muller's hands. He tore through the pages. No, this is fraud. This is a forgery. It's over, Leon, I said. My voice wasn't loud. It was just final. The robotics division is not for sale. The assets are frozen pending a full audit of your tenure. Leon threw the folder on the floor. You bitch. You think you can walk in here and dictate terms to me? I am the VP of Operations. I have a contract. I've read your contract, I said. Clause 14, Section B, termination for cause, gross negligence, fiduciary irresponsibility. And I glanced at Darren, who was still standing by the door. Workplace harassment. Harassment? Leon laughed hysterically. Who did I harass? The delivery boy? He's a nobody. He's my proxy, I said. Darren straightened up. He took off his baseball cap. He walked into the room and stood next to me. Hi, Leon, Darren said. By the way, that elevator isn't broken. I just locked you out. Leon looked from Darren to me. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The paranoia, suspicion he must have felt deep down that the universe was conspiring against him. It was all true. You set me up, he hissed. I exposed you, I countered. There's a difference. I turned to the Germans. Gentlemen, I apologize for the wasted trip. Auralink is pivoting back to R&D. We are not liquidating assets. However, if you are interested in licensing our technology rather than buying it for scrap, my new VP of Engineering will be happy to schedule a meeting next week. New VP? Leon choked out. Who? The elevator dinged in the hallway. The doors opened. Rachel walked out. She had parked the car. She had fixed her makeup. She was wearing her old blazer, the one she wore when she led the team. She looked terrified, but she walked like a soldier. She walked right into the boardroom. She didn't look at Leon. She looked at me. Did I miss the vote? She asked. Just in time, I said. Leon looked at Rachel. The woman he had fired 3 weeks ago. The woman he had mocked in the lobby. This is a joke, Leon said, his voice cracking. This is a family reunion, not a board meeting. It's a shareholder meeting, I corrected. And since I am the majority shareholder, I am calling a vote. I looked around the room. Motion to remove Leon Vance from all executive duties, effective immediately, I said. Seconded, Rachel said. Vote yes, I said. Motion carries. I looked at Leon. You're fired, Leon. Get your box. You have 5 minutes before I call Eddie to escort you out. And Leon, don't steal any staplers. There is a specific kind of silence that follows a public execution. Leon stood there for a full 10 seconds, processing the end of his career. His face cycled through rage, bargaining, and finally, defeat. He didn't scream. He didn't flip the table. People like Leon are cowards when the power dynamic shifts. He just deflated. He looked small in his expensive suit. You'll hear from my lawyers, he muttered, grabbing his briefcase. It was a weak exit line, and he knew it. I look forward to it, I said. I'm sure they'll want to discuss the expense account fraud we uncovered during due diligence. Those client dinners in Vegas. The audit team is going to love those. Leon blanched. He turned and walked out of the boardroom. Watched him go. Darren, Rachel, and I. The 3 Germans watched too, looking mildly amused. He is leaving? Herr Muller asked. He is leaving, I confirmed. Gut, Muller said. He was very loud. I sent Darren to follow him, just to make sure. I wanted the report. Darren told me later that Leon walked back to his office, threw a few things in a bag, and then tried to log into his computer to wipe it. I had already had my IT guys remotely lock his credentials 5 minutes ago. Access denied. He stormed out to the elevator bank. He pressed the button. The doors opened instantly. Inside was a cleaning crew with a cart full of trash bags. The smell of ammonia and refuse wafted out. Leon hesitated. Going down, the cleaner asked. Leon stepped in. He had to squeeze next to the garbage cart. The doors closed. Back in the boardroom, Rachel slumped into a chair. She started to shake. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, Monica, you actually did it. We did it, I said. I poured myself a glass of the champagne Leon had ordered. It was Dom Perignon. At least he had good taste in wine, if not in people. I slid a glass to Rachel. To the new VP of engineering, I said. She took the glass, tears welling up again. But these were good tears. I don't know if I can fix this, Mon, she said. Gutted the department. The team is scattered. Then we hire them back, I said. We offer them raises. We give them equity. We rebuild. Darren walked back in, grinning. He's gone. Eddie escorted him out the front door. He tried to call an Uber, but it was surging, so he's standing in the rain. Perfect, I said. I looked at Darren. And for you, my friend, how does Director of Internal Logistics sound? Darren's jaw dropped. Does that mean I don't have to wear the uniform? Means you can wear whatever you want. And you get an office. Preferably one with a view of the elevator so you can make sure nobody holds the door for the wrong people. The Germans cleared their throats. Miss Hall, Mueller said, about the licensing deal. We are still interested. If the technology is as good as Mr. Vance claimed, it's better, Rachel interrupted. She stood up, wiping her eyes, switching back into engineer mode. Vance didn't understand half of what we built. Let me show you the schematics for the neural net integration. It's not just robotics, it's adaptive learning. I sat back and watched my sister take command of the room. She was brilliant. She was passionate. She was everything Leon wasn't. I took a sip of champagne. It tasted like victory. The next morning, Aura Link was buzzing. Rumors fly faster than light in a corporate office. By 9:00 a.m., everyone knew that Leon was out and some mysterious woman had bought the company. I called an all-hands meeting in the atrium. I stood on the mezzanine, looking down at the sea of nervous faces. They expected another hatchet man, another round of layoffs. Rachel stood next to me. Good morning, I said into the microphone. My name is Monica Hall. I am the new owner of Aura Link. Silence. Yesterday, former VP of Operations attempted to sell the core of this company to a competitor. That sale has been canceled. A murmur went through the crowd. Leon Vance has been terminated for cause, I continued. A few people in the back actually cheered. Effective immediately, we are unfreezing the hiring budget for engineering. We are reinstating the 401k match that was cut last quarter. And we are bringing back the original cleaning staff at full wages. This time the applause was real. However, I said, raising a hand, we have work to do. The stock is in the toilet. The product is late. We are going to work harder than you have ever worked. But you won't be working for a man who treats you like furniture. You'll be working for her, I pointed to Rachel. Rachel is the new head of operations. You all know her. You know she builds things that work, and she knows how hard you work. Rachel stepped forward. She was glowing. Let's get to work, she said. The energy in the room shifted instantly. It went from fear to purpose. It was palpable. I walked back to the executive offices, Leon's old office. It was grotesque. He had a pudding green in the corner and a poster of the Wolf of Wall Street on the wall. Burn it, I told Darren, who was following me with a clipboard. Burn all of it, and get me a desk. A normal desk. None of this mahogany ego trip garbage. On it, Darren said. I sat on the windowsill, looking out at the city. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Leon. You'll regret this. You don't know who I know. I typed back. I know who you know, Leon. I have your phone contacts, and I have your browser history. Do you really want to play this game? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. He never texted again. 3 months later, Aura Link stock was up 40%. The Theranos article I had planted was long forgotten, placed by puff pieces in TechCrunch about the miracle turnaround led by the visionary sisters. The press loves a good narrative flip. Rachel was working 80 hours a week, but she was happy. She had hired back her old team. The robotics prototype was actually working. I was in the boardroom, my boardroom now, reviewing the Q1 financials. We're in the black, Jenkins, the CFO said, looking at me with a mix of awe and terror. He was still there. I kept him because he was useful, but he knew I owned him. Cash flow is positive. Good, I said. Approve the bonuses for the engineering team, and for the executive team, Jenkins asked hopeful. No bonuses for execs this year, I said without looking up. We're still in debt from the buyout. You can have a bonus when the stock hits $50. Jenkins nodded, defeated but accepting. I walked out of the meeting. Darren was at his desk outside my office, was wearing a hoodie and managing the logistics for the entire supply chain. He was a natural. Hey boss, he said. You got a package. He handed me a small box. It was from the nursing home in Connecticut. I opened it. Inside was a black king chess piece, and a note from Elias Thorne, checkmate. I smiled. I hadn't just saved a company. I had vindicated an old man, saved my sister, and made myself about $12 million in unrealized gains. The money wasn't the point. The point was the look on Leon's face when the elevator doors didn't open. That was the currency I traded in. I went down to the lobby to grab a coffee. Eddie was there. He gave me a salute. "Afternoon, Miss Monica." "Afternoon, Eddie. How's the family?" "Good, ma'am. Thanks for the overtime." I walked outside. The air was crisp. New York felt different when you owned a piece of it. It felt less like a cage and more like a game board. I saw a guy in a suit yelling at a barista in the coffee shop next door. He was waving his hands, acting important, treating the girl like dirt. I stopped. I watched him. I felt that cold switch flip in the back of my brain again. I wondered where he worked. I wondered who owned his building. Rachel texted me, "Dinner tonight? We're celebrating the beta launch." I texted back, "Can't, have to look into something." I took a picture of the shouting man. I sent it to Darren. "Find out who this is. The game never really ends." "So, where's Leon Vance now?" "Last I heard, he's consulting," which is code for unemployed and posting motivational quotes on LinkedIn. He lists himself as a turnaround specialist. I made sure to endorse him on LinkedIn for fiction writing and office politics. Rachel is the CEO of Aura Link now. I stepped back to chairman of the board. I don't like the day-to-day. I like the hunt. Released the new robotics line last week. It's revolutionizing warehouse logistics. The irony is that the main client is the German conglomerate Leon tried to sell us to. They're paying full price now. People ask me if I feel bad about the deception, the shell companies, the ruthlessness. I tell them this: the corporate world is a jungle. There are lions and there are gazelles. Leon thought he was a lion because he roared loud, but he was just a hyena. Scavenging, not a lion. I'm the climate. I don't roar. I just change the temperature until you can't survive. If there's a lesson here, it's this: be nice to the delivery guy. Be nice to the receptionist. Be nice to the quiet sister in the lobby, because you never know who is holding the keys to the elevator. And if you're ever in a boardroom and the door opens to reveal a woman in a Chanel blazer holding a folder you didn't authorize, well, just remember to take the stairs. It's healthier. That's my story. If you enjoyed watching a mediocre man get dismantled by competent women, upvote this post. And if you have a story about a boss like Leon, drop it in the comments. I'm always looking for new investment opportunities. Stay sharp and hold the door. Monica.
Has a funny way of teaching lessons at the office water cooler. Today's story just reminded us that patience usually outlasts arrogance. Thanks for staying with me out. I'll see you in the next one.